Hey everyone, this is Lockerhole, and in this video I'm going to be showing off my Discharge Ignite Chieftain build. This build is super fun, there's tons of explosions, it's good for bosses, it's good for clear, and it's pretty cheap to get going. So what you're watching in the background now is a T6 map on a pseudo low level character. I unspec'd a lot of points, and as you can see it's clearing fine, and this is with probably about 10C worth of gear, if that. So this build was actually originally based on this is Badger's Ignite Discharge Chieftain, but I've since then evolved it. But I'm going to show you everything from a super uber budget version for 10 chaos up to a budget version, which is about 3 or 4x, into an endgame version, which is just really great. It can clear pretty much all the content in the game, as far as I can tell. Well, I haven't done everything. I haven't done the Maven yet. I assume it can clear that though. So the way this build works is we have Enduring Cry, which generates charges, endurance charges. So we have that on our left click. We get a bunch of charges and then we discharge them, which makes a nice big explosion. That explosion does a fair amount of damage, but it also ignites the enemy, and most of our damage is going to be coming from that ignite. So it's a damage over time build. The explosion does do some damage, but yeah, for killing bosses and things, ignite is where the damage is coming from. So for damage with fire and ignite, we are going to be looking for mods like fire damage over time multiplier, burning damage, ignite damage, fire damage. So for the uber budget version, Ashcaller is a great option because it gives us most of these mods: fire damage over time multi, burning damage, chance to ignite, everything we want. Helmet, Primnor's Resolve, a bit more fire damage, bit of life, cold resistance, and cannot be chilled, which is great. We're always using a fire skill, so pretty much immune to freeze and chill. For the shield, this is a mandatory item for the budget version, Red Blade Banner. So what this does is it gives us a huge cooldown recovery rate on our Warcry, which is important because it helps us maintain our endurance charges. But it also has this mod, Warcries have infinite power. What that means is that when you use a Warcry skill, you will always generate maximum charges. So as you can see, I use it here, I get 7 endurance charges instantly. If I take this off and then do a Warcry, I get no charges. So the way Enduring Cry works is that the more mobs that are around you, the more endurance charges you get. So we don't want to have to worry about that, especially when killing bosses. So we're going to be using Red Blade Banner. That'll help us when we're poor to sustain charges. As for rings, we're going to go for Comb's Sign. Don't worry about getting Comb's Way right away. This will give us another endurance charge, bit of life, bit of strength, and another one on this side. As for armor, boots, belt, amulet, just go for life, resistances if you want, and dexterity. One thing this build does struggle with is dexterity, so try find that on items where you can. Gloves, again, this is uber budget. We're just going for life, resistances, things like that. Same for belt, same for boots, movement speed, life, resistances. And for your flasks, just a life flask. Granite flask is nice. Basalt, great. Quicksilver, great. Quartz, also great. I recommend going into Einhar's area and just crafting on things like remove curse and remove chill. Well, you won't need it for that. And remove poison and instant. So let's hop over to Path of Building. Before we get started, I just want to show you that I've got different variations of the tree. There's a level 1 to 34, there's a level 35 to 60, an uber budget version of the tree, a budget version, and an endgame version of the tree. That's also true for the items. So I've got a uber budget version here, I've got a budget version, and an endgame version. So as you progress your character, just make sure to update these so you can see what you need to do next to improve the build. So looking at the uber budget version, if you want to skip ahead to the more advanced version, just check the chapters below, but I'm going to start with the uber budget version just to show that this is a viable, cheap build. So what we're going to start off with is just pathing along here, trying to get up to Divine Judgment quickly. This will give us 50% increased elemental damage. But then we're going to try get to Elemental Overload as quickly as possible because this gives us 40% more elemental damage, which is great. We don't care about crits, so Elemental Overload is a massive DPS increase. From there, we're going to be trying to grab some more LE damage. This gives us a chance to ignite, which is great. Bit of life, and bit of dexterity. And then we want Deep Breaths, which will give us increased Warcry cooldown recovery rate. This allows us to use our Enduring Cry more often. Same with Escalation. This gives us life when we use a Warcry, and Warcry increased Warcry cooldown recovery rate. What is English? And then we're going to start pathing down this way toward Blood Magic and also Call to Arms. Call to Arms is very important for this build because it allows us to use Warcries instantly. So we're only using one Warcry, so we don't have to worry about Warcries share their cooldown, but this allows us to put it on our left click, which means that we're going to be using Enduring Cry every time it comes off cooldown. Looking at the level 35 to 60 tree, this is when we allocate Call to Arms and Blood Magic. Blood Magic will just allow us to not have to worry about mana at all, and Mortal Conviction will allow us to run Malevolence without having to reserve any mana. Also looking at the Ascendancy, we're going to be first getting Ramako Sun's Light, which gives us fire damage over time, Chance to Ignite, and Fire Pen. And then we're going to be getting Hinekora Death's Fury, which gives us, this helps us kill bosses more easily because it covers enemies in Ash, which increases the fire damage they take, and it gives us fire damage leeches life. So we're going to get those two first. After that, we're going to get Valako Storm's Embrace, which gives us regen per endurance charge, more damage if we've lost an endurance charge recently, which is always. Gain an endurance charge every second if you've used a Warcry recently, and +1 to max endurance charges. And then lastly, we're going to be grabbing Tassalio Cleansing Water, which gives us 100% to fire res, 15% fizz taken as fire, and life recovery rate if we've taken fire damage, and unaffected by Ignite. So for 35 to 60, first grab these, then grab Valakos. You should be able to do Merciless Lab probably before you hit maps. Definitely before you hit maps. Also, other notables worth notabling is Stamina for more endurance charges, Unwavering Stance, cannot evade enemy attacks, cannot be stunned, good for survivability, Arsonist, which gives us fire damage over time, increase fire damage, and regenerate 1% life per second. Over here, we're going to grab another endurance charge. And over here, Holy Fire, 10% fire damage multi, 20% fire damage, 15% chance to ignite, and ignites you inflict, deal damage 5% faster. That's a great one. And then we're going to be pathing up here to Breath of Flames. Again, more fire dot, more fire damage, ignite duration on enemies, chance to ignite, all excellent points that we need. And then over here, just a bit more life. So for sockets, we're going to be using Discharge, Unbound Ailments, don't worry about the Awakened, Ignite Proliferation, Ignite Proliferation. This will cause our ignites to spread to enemies, so we won't have to worry about hitting everything with the actual initial blast from the discharge. Deadly Ailments, this will deal more damage with ignites. Also, Awaken Burning damage. Again, more burning damage, more fire damage over time if it's got quality, and more burning damage. This adds a ton of damage. Once you get your 6th link, you can add Combustion, which will be more fire damage, chance to ignite, and minus fire resistance. This is very nice for bossing. Another thing you can do before you get a 6th link, if you want, you can create like a pseudo 6th link by getting a cluster jewel like this. Fan the Flames is essentially like Ignite Proliferation. Ignites you inflict spread to other enemies in a radius of 15. So if you can get this, it wouldn't be cheap to get this. Just this jewel is about 30 chaos. You can get that, and then you can swap out Ignite Proliferation for Combustion. But just the 5 links will be enough for the time being. Enduring Cry, we've just got that like this. You can also add Second Wind if you want. I don't know, I wouldn't do that. I've just got it all by itself. We're also going to be using Wave of Conviction. This shoots out a little wave of fire. And what's great about this is that it applies exposure to the enemy, which applies minus 25 elemental resistance, matching the highest damage taken. In this case, it's fire, so minus 25 to fire resistance. That is super powerful. And we're going to be linking that with Hex Touch and Flammability. So anything that gets hit by this Wave of Conviction is going to get minus 60-ish fire resistance. That's a huge damage boost, especially for bosses. Also, if you want, you can use Holy Flame Totem while leveling, and in white maps, it just adds a little bit more damage, helps you with bosses. As for movement skills, we can use Shield Charge, linked with a Fortify and a faster attacks if you want. Otherwise, just go with Flame Dash and Smoke Mine. That's what I'm using on the endgame build, but for this, Shield Charge is nice. So that's pretty much it for the uber budget version. As you can see, the Ignite damage per second is about 241,000. Total damage per Ignite is 1.6 million. This doesn't happen instantly, but the DPS is about 250,000-ish. Very strong, even for a build that literally costs 10 chaos. And now we're going to be going over the endgame version, and it's now about 2.5 weeks since I recorded the budget version, and I've changed some stuff around. So I have since killed Maven, I've done Sirus 9, I've pretty much killed every boss in the game. You can see that I've unlocked all of these thingies, which means I've done all of that. So I can confirm this build can do pretty much all the content in the game. So we're going to be using Realm Ender. This is actually very cheap. It costs about 50 chaos as a 6-link. So this is not going to be too expensive. What's good about this is it gives us +4 to our discharge, and it adds a bit of elemental damage. So if you've got a level 21 discharge, you're going to be ending up with a level 25 discharge. That adds a lot of damage. And links are going to be the same as what I showed in the budget version. As for helmets, you can keep using Hrimnor's Resolve. That's a great option, but if you want to go super high end, you can craft something like this. I am going to be crafting this exact helmet in my Crafting for Noobs series. So if you want to know how to make this, you're going to have to watch that series. So be sure to check that out. But this is a great helmet because it's got +1 power charges, nearby enemies have -9 fire resistance. I've also got a video where I craft a similar helmet, but not as good. I think it's called How to Craft a Fire Damage Helmet. You can check that out, just pretty much using scorched fossils on a warlord base. And armor, we've got Farrell's Fur. This is going to help us generate some frenzy and power charges, which again increases our discharge damage. The more charges we have, the more damage we do. So the way that this works is that Aspect of the Cat reserves no mana, right? So we're going to have to get Aspect of the Cat somewhere else. We're going to get that on our gloves. So you can craft this with a Beastcraft. I think it's around 10 chaos. You just need an open suffix. You can craft it on your gloves. I'm going to go over Aspect of the Cat, and then I will tell you why we are crafting it on the gloves and nowhere else. So the way that Aspect of the Cat works, right? It's got while active, grants the cat's stealth and cat's agility buffs in sequence. So it cycles between these two. If we look at Farrell's Fur, you can see it says gain up to your maximum number of frenzy and power charges when you gain cat's stealth. So we're going to be gaining cat's stealth every 2.5 seconds. We're going to be gaining our max frenzy and power charges. So you can see in this endgame version, that's another 10 charges that I'm gaining. So the reason we're going to be using Aspect of the Cat in our gloves is because we want to link it with less duration. This actually causes this buff to cycle more quickly. So you can see there it says buff lasts 2.5 seconds. If we take out less duration, you can see it shows buff lasts 6.24 seconds. This means that we're getting our power and frenzy charges only every 6 seconds. So it's huge buff to put this less duration in our gloves. Continuing on, You can continue using Comb's Way, that's a cheap option. I've got this synthesized ring with +1 endurance charges implicit. I've also used an essence to get dexterity. Like I said, this build does struggle with dexterity, so I pretty much just spammed some essences till I got something decent looking. We're going to use Call of the Brotherhood because this build is a conversion build. So the way that works is on Realm Ender, we've got Socketed Gems are supported by level 5 cold to fire. So this converts any cold damage from discharge to fire, and then any lightning damage is converted to cold damage. And then we're going to be, I'm just hopping over to the passive tree quickly, Avatar of Fire, 50% of physical, cold, and lightning damage converted to fire damage, and we deal no non-fire damage. Now, I'm not exactly sure how all that conversion works, but it does, and it adds a lot of damage. Someone in the comments will probably give me crap for that, but just trust me. It makes a lot of damage. I'll do a video where I explain conversions sometime. For Amulet, we're going to be using Vol's Devotion. This gives us gain an endurance charge when we lose a power charge. So with this, every time we discharge, you can see I've got frenzy charges. I lose 6 frenzy charges and I gain 6 endurance charges. It all just kind of works together to keep our uptime on our charges as high as possible. As for booties, again, I'm using a +1 max endurance charge synthesized boots, and then I've just used some essences to get the move speed, but you can use Death's Door instead. This is a great option. It gives you +1 max endurance charges, and bleeding cannot be inflicted on you. That's a really nice buff. It's also got a bit of movement speed. So I think these are about 2x. That's a great option. And as for more budget gloves, you can get a pair of hunter gloves and try craft on fire damage over time multiplier, and then obviously craft on cat's stealth. So that's another option. And for belt, pretty much anything, just life, damage. You might need some resistances, just that sort of thing. I have crafted this thingy. It is a dual influence belt with elemental damage and fire damage and a bit of life. It is currently, you can see, it is half crafted. So yeah, it needs a bit of work. Let's hop over to the passive tree. So things are pretty similar. We've allocated another power charge over here, and we have Intuitive Leap. This allows us to allocate passives without them being connected to the tree. Where we've got another power charge here, we got an endurance charge here, and going down this, the Red Dream, this is very important. Passives granting fire resistance or all elemental resistances in radius also grant an equal chance to gain an endurance charge on kill. So surrounding this are things like this, Diamond Skin, +12 to all elemental resistances. So this gives us 12% chance to gain an endurance charge on kill. This also does, but it's only 3%. Same here, 3%. And over here, that's the other one. This gives us 8 fire resistance, so 8% chance to gain endurance charge on kill. This means I think this all adds up to about 26%. So you're pretty much always getting endurance charge. If you clear a big pack of white mobs, you're gonna shoot up to max endurance charges. This is very nice. This is sort of the missing piece of the puzzle between Red Blade Banner and still being able to sustain endurance charges, if that makes sense. I really struggled without Red Blade Banner before I got the Red Dream, but once I inserted this into my passive tree, I had no issues anymore. But the real damage is going to come in with these fancy pants cluster jewels. So we're going to be using a large cluster jewel with increased fire damage. I have selected Burning Bright, which gives us fire dot, fire damage, and increased area of effect. Also, Prismatic Heart, elemental damage, and elemental resistances. Then for a medium cluster jewel, I've got Blowback, which gives us Ignites deal damage 15% faster, great for killing bosses more quickly, and Burning Bright. Again, fire dot, fire damage, area of effect, same as this one. And then on this side, I have Cooked Alive, 15% chance to ignite, and enemies ignited by you have -10 fire resistance, great for bosses, and Cremator, 30% increased fire damage, and ignited enemies you hit are destroyed on kill. This is kind of nice for spiky porcupine monsters that shoot spikes at you, but you can use different ones if you like. These ones, I feel like Cooked Alive is probably one of the best ones, and Burning Bright. Those are the two main ones you're going to be looking out for. These ones sort of, you can look at the other potential options and decide which ones you like best. And don't let me forget my flasks again. We're still using a Panicked Divine Flask. This just, if our life drops, we can shoot it straight back up. That's not going to happen often. This build has got tons of regen. And then we're using a Wise Oak. During Flask effect, damage penetrates resistance of each element for which your uncapped elemental resistance is highest. On this build, fire resistance is pretty much always going to be highest because we have this thingy. Tassalio, Cleansing Water, 100% to fire resistance. So using a Wise Oak will pretty much guarantee that we're doing another 15% fire pen. Then we're going to use a Cinder Swallow Urn. This helps us gain 3% life on kill during Flask effect and regenerate 3% of life per second during Flask effect. But also, enemies ignited by you during Flask effect take 10% increased damage. So that's another really great thing for bossing. I'm still using a Quicksilver Flask and a Basalt Flask. You can also use a Granite Flask if you like. And as for sockets, I'm still using Malevolence, Enduring Cry, Wave of Conviction, Flammability, Hex Touch, Faster Casting. I should swap that for a Combustion, but yeah. Then Smoke Mine combined with Flame Dash. I've talked about that in pretty much every video that I do, so that's great. Holy Flame Totem, don't really need it. Your Pharaohs does not need to be 6-linked. I use Frostbomb because it's really nice for reducing energy shield regeneration against bosses. You don't have to use it, but I would recommend it. Over here, Righteous Fire, I mean, you really don't need to use that. And then I've got an Immortal Call set up. Immortal Call, cast when damage taken, and increased duration. You could swap out Immortal Call for Val Molten Shell, if you like, but that's up to you. It is your prerogative. Something I've added that will help you get equipped more easily and see what you need is this spreadsheet. So you can see here it's got the helmet, Hrimnor's Resolve. If you click this link, it'll bring up the trade site with this item, so you don't have to go and search manually for all this stuff. I thought that would just be helpful. It also shows sort of some stats that you need to look out for, as well as some notes, so you can see that on the side. Also here you can see some gems and where you can get them, so have a look. It's got some early leveling stuff. I don't know about this, I might update it before I release this video, but here you can see all the links and where you can get them. I definitely need to update this before I release it, but yeah, check the description below for these two documents. They'll help you get going more easily. I believe that's all for this video. If I've missed anything, please let me know. This is my first build guide, so I feel like this was a bit messy, but if you feel like I explained it all right, let me know. But if you have any questions, please do let me know in the comments below, because yeah, I would like to do more build guides and do them better. So any constructive criticisms or suggestions are very much welcome, as long as you're nice. Actually, you can be mean if you want, but mean in a nice way. Anyway, that's Local. This is Ignite Discharge Chieftain. I'm going to play some clips of me killing stuff. Have a great day and stay safe. Take care. Bye.
punching exile. You're making me nervous.